Marvel and DC are screwed.
And it was all set, and we had to break their hearts real quickly.
Who is this a-hole over here? Like, he doesn't even work for us, and he's coming to tell us, like, I'll never work for you.
They can't argue with the results. Those books were flying off the shelves.
And he went, holy shit, because you guys are going to do so much damage. And we did.
Hey, what is up, everyone? It's Rich. All right, welcome to a video. I watched that series the other day, and it was interesting, but I wanted to do a video and start to dive into this topic, which is underground publishing, self-publishing, alternative comics, counterculture press, fanzines, all that stuff. It's something that I've always really been kind of fascinated with, and I want your help sort of doing it. This is just a preamble and kind of a dipping our toes into it, but I've always thought that this stuff is pretty fun, and you know, things like National Lampoon. There's a real good documentary, I think it was on at one point Netflix, about National Lampoon. It's definitely worth a watch. But you know, I mean, these companies did very, very controversial things. We've got, you know, if you don't buy this magazine, we'll kill this dog. Could we do this now? I don't know. So originally, from what I've read, is that this could be one of the earlier, I'm sure that you could go way back in history and find things where satire and lampooning took place, but this was interesting because most of the stuff I saw started in either the 60s or 70s. You know, the 60s would be things like this underground press stuff. The 70s is things like Dave Sim. I think they said ElfQuest. Is this it? I opened a bunch of different things. So this is underground press. Counterculture in the 60s and 70s. Where was alternative comics? Is this it? So Love and Rockets, Raw, 8-Ball, Hate. But, you know, one of the jobs as artists and writers that we have is to criticize and satirize and entertain. You know, not everything needs a message. We've got Comicsgate with Richard C. Meyer and Ethan being at the top of that. Yeah, they're credited as the commentator and former DC illustrator. We have... this list was interesting. This is just, you know, some website. I don't know who Writing Tip Oasis is. So sometimes the information that you can get online is you know what I mean? You're not 100% sure. So I pulled up Larry Flint. I figure he's pretty edgy, but give me recommendations of different things that we could look into, because I really would like to make like a nice little sort of casual documentary on this. I love seeing people that kind of go the extra mile with their YouTube videos and put together you know, like a fan-made documentary on things. There's a Metallica documentary that this guy did on Master of Puppets. It's like 45 minutes. It's excellent. It really is. It should be a professional release. It's so good. In fact, I'm really hoping he does another one because it's incredible. And there's other YouTubers that have done stuff at that level. I don't know if I would be able to get this at that level, but I still thought it would be interesting to give it a shot. But yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid, like National Lampoon, and you would like flip through it, and it's like you knew that it was edgy. You knew that it probably was like, you know, controversial, but it kind of made it sort of fun. And I mean, Image Comics was very thumb your nose at Marvel and DC and do things like that. And we're seeing that again now, and fans seem to support it. And ultimately, if we go down the list, I think Todd maybe has done a little tiny bit of work for other publishers since he's done Spawn. Very little. We know that Jim has. Rob Liefeld has definitely worked for Marvel. Mark has worked for Marvel again. Larson may not have. I don't know if Larson ever floated back. And Jim Valentino, I honestly don't know what he's really worked on in the last 10 or 15 years, to be honest. I don't know if he still draws anymore. And then Wills has definitely worked for Marvel. and also DC. So it's interesting, that these guys all did actually split. And I mentioned that, for me as a fan, I'm a child of these guys. This is what birthed me into comics. This is what got me excited about comics. This is what got me interested in drawing comics and creating comics. And so I always had this vision burned in my mind of how I would draw comics. And it was things like the Savage Dragon and Spawn and Wildcats and Cyberforce and Wetworks and all this kind of thing. And I think that Image Comics definitely had a unique voice when they started, and although unique meaning that it was sort of like a new sort of version of what essentially Marvel did, I would say mostly. There was an energy and excitement and sort of an edginess to it, and sort of a cutting edge sort of feeling to it. And what's interesting has been pointed out in videos that I've seen recently. And I mean, look, I watch Ethan's channel. I watch Richard C. Meyer review comic books. And Richard is an example. I mean, I don't like if you give this guy any credit, like if you're going to get attacked or not. But I mean, he does videos that are very, very positive towards DC's comics at times. So it's like, I mean, he's just giving his opinion on it. But what was my point? It was let me get back to the Image Comics page. He had said that for whatever reason, what these guys created, Jim and Liefeld and Todd and Mark and Eric and Jim Valentino and Wills, still is cool today. That's the incredible thing. That's how awesome these guys were, is that what they did, 25 years ago? I think that's about right. Yeah, it's almost almost 30 years ago. So 30 years ago, these guys made such a big impact in comics that not only is their business model still pretty relevant, the style of work still is. They created a style of comic book art that fused the classic work of people like Jack Kirby and John Buscema and Gil Kane and John Romita Sr. and all these amazing artists. They kind of made it more detailed and like not more exciting, but then a different kind of exciting, colorful stories about these fantastic heroes doing, crazy things and government espionage and all this fun stuff. And those books are still a lot of fun. And that's what I'm super, super passionate about creating, is that kind of comic book. That's always been my dream. Someone asked me on my Instagram last night or this morning, and they said, why has DC never offered you penciling work? And really it comes down to it's been my own fault. It has nothing to do with DC. But my fantasy was always to do a book like these guys did. Even to the point of that I would prefer to write it myself. Like, it had to be something that I created. So ultimately, if I would envision, okay, you're going to work really hard on your pencils, you're going to get good enough to draw a book, and then you're going to throw yourself into this really kind of submissive position, which is an editor will have to discover you. They'll have to test you and try you out. You might start on some oddball book, and it's fine. I mean, that's the chain of how it works in those companies. You get the third tier Teen Titans book, or you get the third tier like Marvel book of like some throwaway thing, and then you sort of grind through that, and maybe the stories aren't so good, you're not choosing the writer, or the coloring is bad. And it just every step along the way, when I would envision what the reality might be, I felt defeated. It was like, I don't think this is for me. Like, I just want to create something awesome right from the get-go, and even if it sucks, it'll be as awesome as I can make it, which might be cool. It's not always about the exact quality of everything that you do. You can tell I'm a fan of people that can draw really well. Like, I kind of jokingly call it like virtuosic, like level of skill. But I like a lot of stuff that's very raw and rough around the edges, and ultimately it isn't necessarily about that you are your anatomy perfect, or whatever it would be. Like, you've mastered every corner of drawing, but you just draw cool looking stuff, and I feel like I could draw cool looking stuff. So it's interesting. It's that's part of why I just never did it. Is it didn't really seem like the right thing for me. I never knew anyone at Marvel, so I mean, Marvel, I think if I really looked at the whole landscape, the Batman family is really, really cool to me. I love Batman. I love all the villains. It's all very, very cool. Then Marvel has a lot of characters that I like. So ultimately just decided that I would rather make up my own. And it's like I can make, I could do a superhero book. I could do horror. I could do fantasy. I could do science fiction. I can merge them and have one that's superhero, science fiction, action adventure with some sci fantasy, crime and mystery all in it. And it could be dark fantasy. I don't need to wait for someone to like come up with the script that's going to be good for me. And there's tons of great talent at all the companies, but it just wasn't going to be for me. So anyway, so let's start at this. Arguably the first underground newspaper. So this was the first thing that I found when I just looked at origins of underground publishing. So was this. This was kind of interesting. I was bummed that this piece isn't bigger because it actually looks kind of cool. But a lot of these were like hippie magazines and stuff like that. I think this was pretty funny, It's like Nixon with his crazy nose, and it's like, it's a nice little drawing. LBJ and KKK. I mean, that's some edgy stuff right there. Look at this. I don't even know what this is. Les Jamatins, Netherlands. So this is from the Netherlands, I guess. Wish that they had more, but yeah, it should be interesting. So here's some underground papers. Bit, Black Dwarf, Brighton Voice, The Fanatic, Fapto, Friends, Gandalf's Garden. What is that? Interesting. A lot of this was like drug culture. It's kind of weird. Gay News, Heat Wave, Idiot International. What is that? Oh, interesting. I mean, I'm sure some of these are actually probably kind of cool. What's Oz? Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. Farmer's Daughter Rapes Hog. Oh my God. The Anarchist Cookbook. Weathermania. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. But it's interesting. You don't have to agree with any of this stuff, but you read it and you come up with your own conclusions. It gets your mind thinking, Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, so this was this. What is this? In Western Europe. Blah, 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 blah. And this was 1915. Crazy. All right. What do we got? Let's go here. So, alternative comics. From the mid-70s, artists within the underground comic scene felt that it had become less creative than it had been in the past, according to Art Spiegelman. We had what had seemed like a revolution simply deflated into a lifestyle. Underground comics were stereotyped as dealing with only sex, dope, and cheap thrills. They got stuffed into the closet along with the bong pipes and love beads as things started to get uglier. I'm assuming they mean like the political landscape. In an attempt to address this, underground cartoonists moved to start magazines that anthologized new artistically ambitious comics in the 1980s. Raw, a lavishly produced large... Let me open this. I can check that out in a second. A lavishly produced large format anthology that was clearly intended to be seen as a work of art was founded by Spiegelman and his wife Francois Mouly in 1980. So I'm just getting down. So then we've got, while fans debate the origins of self-publishing in the comic industry, many consider Dave Sim an early leader in this area, which is, interesting. Starting in 1977, he primarily wrote, drew, and published Cerebus the Aardvark, on his own under the Aardvark Vanaheim Inc. imprint, and announcing he would publish 300 issues of the series consecutively. Wow, that's funny. So I didn't realize that he announced that out of the gate, something unheard of at the time for a self-published book. Sim is known for his activism in favor of creators' rights and his outspoken nature in regards to the industry, which he's been quite ostracized for, in fact. He often used the back of his comic to deliver messages from the president, or sometimes editorials concerning the comic industry and self-publishing. So then we have Wendy and Richard Pini, who founded Warp Graphics, one of the early American independent comic publishers in 1977. We're not going to go over all this today. I'm just kind of getting my feet wet and giving you an example of what we can sort of tear through. We've got Tim Vigil, Daniel Close, William Tucci, Bill Tucci, Jeff Smith with Bone. We've got the Hernandez brothers, Love and Rockets, the Acme Novelty Library. That's Chris Ware, right? Is that his name? Yeah, Chris Ware. I have my friend James Smith told me about Chris Ware through KFAB. KFAB to James Smith to me, but I have the Chris Ware, the big. It's kind of like artist edition. It's fantastic. He draws really small. The Crow, Gru the Wanderer, which came from I would assume Mad Magazine. Oh, see, Mad Magazine's another one. Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo. So this is exciting, you know. There's all kinds of cool stuff that we can sort of check out. And I do think it's exciting. I actually had a lot of fun collecting the Cerebus comics. And what was fun about them is, honestly, like, it just felt cool and personal. And like you were getting it directly from the creator, which you, in fact, were. And I think that there was something really cool about that with Image Comics, is that I felt like I was buying a book from Todd. I felt like I was buying a book from Jim. When Jim brought in people like J. Scott Campbell, you felt like it was a club and you were part of the club. And I think that that's really, really appealing. Let's see, what do we got? And then Comicsgate, we'll get into that too. I mean, I don't know tons and tons of the Comicsgate books. I was friends with Mike Miller before I broke in. I knew him, and I know that he was Comicsgate but isn't now. I think there's Alterna Press. I would love to go through some of this. I didn't even know of Fat Freddy and all this stuff until I found out about it a couple of years before I actually got into comic books. I was given a gift of a few of the Fat Freddy comics. I thought they were really, really cool. Like, the art is actually pretty neat, but some really, really fun stuff. Look at the cover of this comic. It's awesome. Thunder Dogs. Like, that's cool looking. This guy can draw good, actually. All right, let's see. Let's look at some more of these. What's this? Rip-off comics. Do we have any bigger files? But yeah, so we'll get into all this. And it's interesting, like I said, I mean, most of the Image founders did actually drift back to the big companies, except Todd, Larson. Mark still, is Top Cow still exist? I mean, from what I know of the last few years, Mark has been working on a Batman project that he's shown little teasers for. Now, I don't know if that will ever come to light. I would have to imagine that it would. There's no way. They're not going to shelve a Sylvester book. When he's done with that, that book will definitely come out, and that will be really, really cool. Valentino, I don't know. Portasio, I'm not 100% sure what he is working on right now. I could see at some point Capullo going back to Spawn. It just seems like it's going to happen from a fan point of view. I get the hunch that at some point he probably will return to that. I think he's made mention of returning to Creech at some point. So who knows? It should be interesting. So anyway, give me some information and some recommendations of things to check out and to look at. The one thing that you get from the Harvard Lampoon was it was created by 7 undergraduates, which is kind of interesting. They were inspired by magazines like Punch and Puck. So we'll have to look at those. Punch and Puck. I'm just checking out what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what comic artists and illustrators do, is we tend to rebel. It's in our blood. Punch. I mean, like, it's in the name. Puck. What's Puck? Let's see. Satirical magazine called Puck. I'm just reading what it says. It's interesting. Oh, all right. So, but they pinned the first issue of the Harvard Lampoon was pinned to a tree on the campus, and people would just walk by and read it on a tree. That was kind of funny. It was nailed to a tree in Harvard Yard. In its earliest years, the magazine focused primarily on the satirization of Harvard and Boston Brahmin society. It's interesting. All right, give me recommendations. Give me some things to pour through. I think it's interesting. It'll be fun to see what all we unturn. But okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. And Patreon, I'm going to shoot a video for you guys right now. All right, bye.